Hey everyone, Andrew Reiner here with a special edition of the Game Informer Show. Today we're talking about Doom. I got Matt Burtz here. We actually traveled last year in early December to id Software's Richardson-based headquarters to check out the game, get our hands on it. And we met with a certain Marty Stratton, the game director and executive producer over at id. Hello, Marty.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. We're going to be answering, or you're going to be answering reader questions we have. We had the community put together hundreds of questions for you, and we culled them down to what we think are the best ones. Burtz, do you want to kick it off with the first one here?
Yeah, let's start with Game Boy SM's question. Will custom snap map levels be shared across platforms?
Yes, they will. It's actually one of the really cool aspects of SnapMap because everybody has all the data kind of on their system and natively. It makes sharing across platforms palatable by first parties and also really, really fast and really, really easy. So yeah, you can build something on any platform and share it, publish it to anybody else on any platforms, and you really get to there's no distinction there. I mean, it goes up to the SnapMap hub, content hub, and people play it.
And is there anything different between how you interact with it between PC and the console versions? Is there something that might be quicker, text prompts, stuff like that, or is it pretty much the same UI across all of it?
It's pretty much the same UI across all of it. I mean, you could, if you're comfortable with the controller on a PC, you can use a controller. It works great, keyboard and mouse, and we've put a lot of time actually into making it really, really function well on a controller, so that having a level, basically a construction tool on the console and use that form factor to build stuff. I mean, it's a challenge. Keyboard and mouse, obviously you have a lot more things to, buttons to press and all that kind of stuff that you can use. So building it all into working with a controller was just a huge focus of the team. And you guys saw a little bit of it with some of the radial menus that pop up on characters when you're making connections and really making things contextual when you're using them in the world. It makes it work really well with the controller, and a lot of that was born out of making it work with the controller. But keyboard and mouse is awesome and a great way to interact with it too.
This next question comes from Jeff M. I believe that's one of our guys at Game Informer.
One of the jerks in our office.
He asks, the team has said that they've gone back to Doom and Doom 2 for inspiration in terms of pace, the feel of weapons, monsters, etc. Are they taking any inspiration from the original level designs as well?
Yeah, to an extent, and you kind of see that. When you play Doom 1 and Doom 2, particularly the further you got into the game, there's a lot of and I see people say this on the forums too. A lot of getting lost, more or less. It's just these mazes that you can get lost in a good way. You're searching around for secrets and key cards and pickups and all the goodies of Doom. So there is definitely that aspect to it. I wouldn't say that we've focused on making sure that if people don't want to really get lost and almost have that frustrating aspect of it, there's a way out, and you can continue on and get to that next combat, which is really what the focus of the game is getting to that next horde of demons that you can take out. But the exploration is you guys got a little taste of it, and the exploration is really fun. We've got guys who've put secrets inside of secrets. In fact, actually, I think Reiner, you found the one that was in that resource operations mission. So it is there is a pretty good sense of that non-linear exploration. And then there's other things. I mean, when you get to Hell, one of our principal level designer, Jason O'Connell, he will literally sit with Doom open right here and his map editor open here, and he'll just play a little bit, and then kind of the inspirational build, and then he'll come up with something in Hell. So he's got a lot of, and it's a good place to do it too. Hell's just awesome from that perspective.
That sounds like there might be a direct callback. Is there going to be like a level name that you're just like, that is from the original Doom, or a particular area you go in that's like, oh my God, this is straight from the originals?
Not particularly, but there's definitely it's like our philosophy kind of for the whole game is we've tried not to just say, let's take that directly. In all cases, we've tried to kind of make it either modern or some fresh element to it, or in a lot of cases we feel like, we're trying to really make a game for two audiences: people who've never played Doom before and just want, the most badass shooter that they can play in 2016, and people who've lived with Doom for the last 22 years and it's a part of their gaming soul. And so it's like hitting nails squarely on the head sometimes is like, we always try to find a way to say, okay, this has got to be awesome just on its own, but for a person who has Doom as part of their being, they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh, I see what you did there. So we try to do that a lot.
Okay.
And I think people will see that, particularly Doom fans. I think they'll be playing through areas and be like, okay, this kind of has a familiarity to it. And then, just people new to the game will just hopefully feel like this is like something I haven't played before.
Sweet.
All right. Now, this is a question we see asked pretty much about every game that comes out these days. I'm going to absolutely murder this guy's name, but Varukter Shackle wants to know, will there be DLC expansions for Doom, and how will they be handled? Will there be microtransactions?
I kind of have to defer to our PR and marketing group on when we announce that kind of stuff. We want to continue with this game well beyond just a retail release. So, and we want to give players tons of value. We're not particularly in the business of grinding people. I think you'd see that with what we're releasing just out of the box, with a pretty cool campaign and full blown multiplayer, and then this custom built snap map stuff. So we want people to enjoy the game, but we've really built in a lot of ways that we can expand it, give players new content, develop the community, give them opportunities to continue to grow within themselves. So that's our focus, and then we'll be talking about all that other stuff down the road.
This comes from Thresher. He doesn't have the E; he has a 3 in his name.
Speak.
Who is doing the soundtrack? We said it sounded like Nine Inch Nails, but obviously it's not Trent Reznor or Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, so we've got kind of a mix of stuff. Our internal audio team, Chris Height's our lead. He's done a few tracks here and there. A lot of our music is coming from Mick Gordon. We're working with him. He did for people who don't know, he did the soundtrack for Wolfenstein from Machine Games. We liked his stuff a lot, and have really give a lot of credit to Chris. He's really worked with Mick to help kind of push. Again, it's like one of those things you get the inspiration from the classics, but want to do something modern. So Doom soundtrack was so iconic and was such a big part of what the game was, and we wanted to have that same feel, have stuff that feels a little bit new and fresh, but has that edge. So people do mention that there's times where it feels a little bit Reznor-ish. There's some stuff that kind of I would say bleeds a little bit kind of towards a electronic, just kind of whatever fits the mood of the mission or the time in the game. But I'm super thrilled with it. There's times where it's just like, man, I haven't heard something like this.
Okay. B Snazzy is asking, will there be a collector's edition of the game? I'm guessing he's wanting some sort of collectible.
Stuff I can't talk about right now.
All right.
But again, big release, and we're excited about kind of all that comes with that. So Bethesda Bethesda marketing team just does awesome stuff, and Doom will be no different than kind of their full force behind a game.
So you're shipping with the leftover Skyrim dragons. Got
it. Oof.
Alex asks, when's the beta?
That's a good question. It's coming up. I'm sorry to have to be so vague on some of this stuff. We plan announcements and have specific things that we have to coordinate on our side. So it is coming, and it will include that whole Wolfenstein group that pre-ordered Wolfenstein. And be a bit different than what we've done with our closed alphas to this point. So people can look forward to it. If they have played in the closed alphas, they will be getting something a little bit different in the beta. And people should just keep their eyes out for the announcement on that timing.
All right. So Gary Thomas is asking, with the emphasis on a return to the more classic style, are attempts being made to avoid the more shallow or tedious elements of older shooters? He kind of references constant fetching of keys, illogical maps that involve an entire section that exits just to hit one switch, and boss battles that are a little more than bullet sponges.
I hope so. All of those things sound really negative. So I hope our game doesn't feel tedious. It's all of those things he's talking about are other than the bosses maybe are just our mechanics, and some of them are things that people speak of very positively, and we do have keys. We have very classic feeling elements, like I've mentioned before. We try to do it in kind of a new way, in a fresh way. People really reacted well to kind of one of our key puzzles in what we showed at E3, being the tear the guy's hand off and use it as a key kind of. So we do that kind of thing. And again, I talked about the levels a little bit already as to how we're approaching level design. I think. If you're coming to Doom to have amazing combat, then I really think people are going to enjoy themselves. We've spent just so much time to try to get that right, to try to get the challenge of it right, the difficulty. In what you guys played, we've actually even ratcheted it up quite a bit since having you out to play it.
Is that because we made it look too easy?
It's funny. You played it well, actually. I was impressed. You're obviously gamers, but you play. When you're developing a game, you spend so much time playing it that you feel like you're an expert at it, and anybody who comes to it fresh isn't going to be as good. So you kind of got to dial it back a little bit. It was awesome to have you in because you handled it really, really well, and So yeah, we've actually dialed up the difficulty, and we've seen as people have played it that they want. It's an action shooter, like it's an action game. So it is about that. Your roller coaster ride in this game is how challenging those fights are. You guys got a taste of it, but it's just super, super fun when you're diving into these arenas, and as we've talked about it, skating through or swimming through the space and using your combination of guns and glory kills. That challenge and then getting your ass kicked and then coming back and adjusting your strategy a little bit. That's the roller coaster ride of Doom, and it's not about canned set pieces and cinematic sequence. It's the roller coaster is the action and the combat, and it's a blast. But making sure those highs are really high and those lows are lows is kind of what we've done.
This next question comes from Starter Pack. Will there be any active story behind the Doom guy, the Space Marine? And does he have a name?
He does not have a name. But as I mentioned when you guys were down here, we've story hasn't been the focus of the development. The combat has, but I would say we've injected a bit more, quite a bit more for people that want to find it and get a little bit more of who the Doom Marine is and where we hope he heads. It's there for people to find, and I like it. I think it's cool stuff. It's more so, I think, than we've had in other Doom games, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see people's reaction to it.
All right. So the next question comes from Robert Ramini. He asks, will there be any kind of unique incentive to do more than one playthrough of the campaign other than the higher difficulties? And the examples he offers is like the unique weapon, like in Dead Space 2's foam finger gun, or the New Order's choice in the prologue.
Yeah, there's no alternate endings or anything like that. But I guess the best answer to that is the way certainly the combat and the way that combat feels and the way that you can approach it differently and using different guns and you guys didn't really see much of it. We kind of because we had such limited time didn't really dive into the weapon upgrades and all of that. There's a lot of exploration that ties into how far you upgrade and what perks you get and all that kind of stuff that if you're a completionist, you can find it all your first playthrough, but we do give the opportunity to go back and play and find that stuff and kind of have that added to your you don't want to call it your character because you're not building a character necessarily, but you're to your quote unquote save. So there is reason to kind of go back. The difficulty stuff is certainly not to be dismissed. It's definitely. It's a different experience to play it on like Hurt Me Plenty versus Nightmare, and you approach things completely differently. It's a blast actually. It's really fun to kind of take that next step. Our Nightmare mode, our regular modes, kind of our lower tier modes, have checkpoints. Nightmare. You basically don't get those checkpoints other than at the kind of mission loads, so it's even a greater challenge. And then we have an Ultra Nightmare mode that is a distinct challenge that we will. I don't want to give too much away, but we will talk about it a little bit more. That I think people will have fun challenging themselves at as well.
Next question is from Aaron Renee. Will there be a scoring system in the single player similar to the old games, or is there something in its place? In regards to single player, how important will problem solving within the level be towards making progress? So 2 questions from Aaron.
Yeah, as far as the kind of, there is a component of the game that takes kind of, again, don't want to go into the weeds of it, but it does kind of create a combat score, so to speak, that you can apply to how you upgrade your modification, your gun modifications, in addition to a bunch of other ways to get that same those same benefits, and that's represented, not exactly again like old games, but like the old Dooms, but it feels, I would say it feels familiar. And then the second question was about what?
Problem solving within the level towards making progress. Yeah.
There is a bit, sometimes it's a little bit of navigation. Sometimes it is figuring out, how to make your way through, through the gating of the game, so to speak, kind of a developer term. But I wouldn't call it, like a puzzle game. Most of the problem solving and the fun problem solving is in the combat and the way that it plays out and how you approach it and how you're constantly thinking. It's amazing when you play it, particularly as you get further and the fights get even more intense. The kind of constant combat problem solving that you're going through and which gun to use against which enemy and how far away he is and how to approach the space. We call these things arenas and we call these spaces that you fight in arenas internally and to a certain extent, there's an aspect of playing it that kind of feels multiplayer-esque in the way that you do kind of traverse the space and move through and attack enemies and make choices, and that kind of path of thinking and speed of thinking is really kind of what we're hitting on from a problem solving perspective.
Okay.
All right, Lorenzo has the next question. He says, I absolutely love every entry in the franchise, but let me be frank. There are but a handful of real boss fights throughout the entire series. Will there be a bigger variety in bosses in this new Doom?
Yeah, we really haven't talked about bosses yet, so I don't want to go too far. We have them, and we're doing our best to make them as cool and as unique as we feel like they should be. That's always what you go at it with, but we're kind of approaching all of this with we're doing what we think is fun and what we think feels great, and then letting people decide for themselves as to whether we hit the mark. So I hope he feels like we did.
And you told us that you won't have the bosses in Snap Map, correct?
That's true initially, yeah.
So that would imply maybe immense scale, or maybe tied into the environment.
You're trying to get me to talk about the bosses. There's a couple things. I mean, bosses they are size-wise is a factor, but also a lot of times you kind of approach a boss. This is a bit on the development side. You approach a boss with a different mentality from a coding perspective and from an AI perspective than you might approach just a regular AI. So a lot of times to get those distinct feeling things happening with a boss, it requires them to be a little bit more predictable or specific in their actions than you would have like just a normal AI. And it is one of the good things, the way our game is not particularly, when you think of it relative to other shooters, there's not a lot of scripting of AI, and that's why it works so well with SnapMap, because you can use the AI and place them in, because they're just good AI and they use our traversal system to move through the world and do cool animations. They work really, really well. So it's just a bit of a different thing. But I will say in SnapMap, you can dial up and down health of enemies extensively. So there's often times where people create a SnapMap scenario and they want a boss encounter, and they'll use a Mancubus, let's say, and just dial up his health quite a bit if they want just kind of a big, long, tough fight in an area, or a boss style encounter, that they'll do something like that.
And this next question kind of ties in with SnapMap. There is Fergoet asks, what is the most complex, wildest thing that you have created using SnapMap?
Me personally, I don't think it's really particularly wild. I have two things that I've been working on. One I got kind of far is like basically it's like an escort mission where you're escorting a zombie through a kind of a complex mission, and so you're trying to get him to his end point. At the same time, you're fighting against all manner of demons that are trying to attack him and attack you. It's a little bit of a bodyguard scenario. Another thing that I did early on, actually probably the thing that I spent I think it was probably 6 hours on a Saturday just working on this one thing, and that was it was very early on in the SnapMap, when SnapMap was really starting to work well, and it was just a 2-player race actually. But so they had identical, kind of built a path for them to take, a first-person shooter path to try to get to the end. But they had to kind of accomplish these objectives in these distinct spaces. So they had to blow up 4 barrels, and then they got the key to the next area, or it unlocked the door to the next area, and so on and so forth, while they're fighting. But it was a timed race. So I built it on one side, and then I duplicated it and flipped it on the other side so 2 players could do it. But one of the fun things is you could kind of take these little offshoots and go and effectively set traps for the person you were racing against. So you could go in and press a button and spawn a boss in his level, and you would get updates of where they were along their path. And there were, again, it was timed. So if you wanted health or armor or ammo or an extra gun, you'd have to take a separate path over or move outside of the realm of the golden path. So it was really fun, but those kind of pale in comparison to some of the other stuff that people have done internally.
All right, we probably only have time for a couple more.
Yeah.
This is one I actually didn't think of this. In SnapMap, is there a way to up the gore and blood, sort of like a gore slider, so you can make your own brutal Doom?
No, actually, there's not. I mean, most of that stuff is based on the animations. There are ways that you can change the atmosphere within your modules or your map to make it feel like really. Think of like. Almost like Instagram filters. So you can create some very, very moody stuff. And then of course you can, like, from an atmosphere and world perspective, you can just go to town with clutter and props, and some of it you can put up automatically. You can just say, hey, I want more clutter in this level, or I want more detail on the ceiling, and you just push a slider and it automatically appears, or you can just add it all yourself. As far as the gore and the jibs, I'm not sure it could get dialed up too much more. It's pretty outlandish.
Just constant geysers of blood from dead corpses.
I guess, yeah.
Never ending. This next one is a very specific example of a secret. You might not be able to talk about it, but it comes from Biminin89. Can we expect to find a developer's head on a spike in a secret location? That is a callback to the first Doom, right? Doom 1, I believe. There was like a
with
wall you could go through. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not a developer's head, but there is a head on a spike. So you can try and find it.
Interesting.
All right.
Well, thank you, Marty, for answering the questions from the community. Good luck finishing up the game.
And thanks to the community for sending in the questions.
Yeah. What was the release?
Really appreciate it.
What's the release date on this game now? What was it? It's
spring. Try.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. And definitely thank you to the community. Really, really appreciate all the support, and we look forward to giving them something fun to play.